The sword Tyrfing was locked away, out of sight and out of mind, by the shield maiden Heiðrek. She had proven herself a skilled and courageous warrior, but she grew tired of her Viking lifestyle, longing for a calmer, settled life. Luckily, stories of her fame and beauty had spread far and wide, and she was soon courted by a noble man named Heiðrek, the son of a king, who asked for her hand in marriage. He promised to treat her with honour and respect, and to make her queen of the kingdom he was to inherit from his father. So Heiðrek gladly accepted the proposal. Soon after, they became king and queen, and they had 2 sons, one named Angantyr, for Heiðrek's deceased father, and the other was named Heiðrek. Both boys grew to become handsome, strong, wise and accomplished, though they were very different in temperaments. Angantyr was similar to his father in that he was patient, thoughtful and generous to his friends and followers. Heiðrek, on the other hand, took more after his mother's family, as he was much more impulsive, quick to anger, and rather mischievous too. Heiðrek loved Heiðrek dearly, but due to his mischief and impatient nature, he was sent away to be fostered by a wise man named Gizur, a curious, one-eyed man who often carried a spear. Heiðrek had been away from his home for quite some time, rarely receiving messages from his father or his brother, though one day he heard gossip of a great feast that was to be held at the king's hall, and all the greatest folk in the land were invited. However, Heiðrek had not been honoured with an invitation, so his foster father, Gizur, suggested, "Go to the feast, foster son. Your father honours your brother more than you, though you are just as noble, worthy of being seen and respected by the great men and women of the kingdom. Why not visit and repay their cruel treatment of you with a bit of mischief?" So Heiðrek made the journey, and his father was shocked and appalled that he had arrived uninvited. Heiðrek was upset at the treatment of him and acted gloomy and miserable all evening, drinking late into the night. As he drunkenly spoke with the other guests, he made a game of spreading rumours and gossip, stirring men to violence against one another, which led to fistfights throughout the feast. Angantyr tried his hardest to calm these disputes, but Heiðrek continued to inspire chaos with his mischievous tales and slanders, eventually leading one man to slay another over a trivial matter. King Heiðrek announced, "Heiðrek, you must leave at once, as this visit has caused nothing but trouble. Your wicked words have caused violence between friends and brothers, so for this, you are now banished from the realm." His mother Heiðrek, however, was understandably sad to see her son so cruelly cast out from his home so soon after his return, so she resolved to give him gifts to help him on his travels. She said, "Dear son, I give you this bag of gold and my sword Tyrfing. Your brother Angantyr has a whole kingdom and the king's retinue of men to keep him safe, so he has no need of this heirloom. I fear that you shall be out there alone in this world, and the sword that brings victory will be essential for your very survival." He gladly accepted these fine gifts and wished his mother farewell before leaving home forever. His brother Angantyr, however, wished to see his brother off and meet with him one final time. They travelled together for a short time along the road from their father's hall, and Angantyr asked his brother, "What treasures has our mother gifted you?" Heiðrek showed his brother the generous amount of gold he had received, and the sword Tyrfing, safe in its scabbard, of course. The brothers had heard rumours of the legendary sword once wielded by their mother and grandfather, but Heiðrek had carefully hidden the blade for many years, so they had never once seen it in the flesh. "Show me the blade," begged Angantyr. The stories say that it shines as bright as the sun. Heiðrek warily replied, "I do not think I should, brother. I was told to only show it when I needed its power." But Angantyr pleaded to see the magic sword one time before it was taken away forever. So Heiðrek relented and pulled out the weapon. It shone with a horrifying light, so beautiful it could nearly blind a man. But the brothers had no comprehension of the curse they had unleashed, as the sword now craved death and wet, warm blood upon its blade. Heiðrek had no control over his actions, and before he realised what was happening, he found that he had slain his own brother, kind, virtuous Angantyr. Though the sword had taken many lives, this was the first of its 3 prophesied hateful deeds, amongst the worst to ever be committed in this world. Heiðrek knew now that there was no hope that he would ever be able to return to his home, and he understood the terrifying power that he now wielded. He travelled far away, across distant horizons, all the way to Reyðgotaland, which was a troubled place, ruled over by King Harald. Lesser men made war on Harald from all sides, and his kingdom crumbled. So Heiðrek offered his help, explaining, "I have been taught the art of warfare and skill at arms by my foster father, Gizur, and I have a strong feeling that even with a small army, I will always find victory." Harald thought that this young man was an arrogant half-wit at first, but he was desperate, as none of his followers possessed the courage and enthusiasm of this stranger. So he granted Heiðrek a small army of men, what little he could spare, whilst he tried to fight off enemies on all fronts. And to the shock of King Harald, Heiðrek won victory after victory, always beating the odds, defeating armies 10 times the size of his own. There was clearly some sorcery at work here. Not that King Harald cared, for his kingdom had been saved. The king offered his daughter Helga as a wife for Heiðrek, a sign of the high honour and esteem he had won in the land, all thanks, of course, to the magic of the sword Tyrfing. Heiðrek and Helga soon had a son, whom they named Angantyr, but their lives were soon shaken by a famine which came to the kingdom, a blight which no magic sword could combat. King Harald consulted his seeress, who had warding music sung while she ate animal hearts and was raised up high to consult with the spirits. She announced, "The spirits have spoken. The price for ending this famine is the life of the highest born child in the realm. Sacrifice to the gods or suffer starvation." King Harald immediately declared, "We shall sacrifice the son of my loyal warrior Heiðrek, as he is clearly the highest born child in the realm," a decree which horrified Heiðrek, particularly due to the fact that King Harald himself had just had a son of his own. But the king did not truly comprehend just how truly beloved Heiðrek had become in his lands, as most of the great men of the kingdom looked to Heiðrek for leadership and counsel, recognising that it was he who had saved their lands from the king's enemies. So when the king made the unwise decision to sacrifice the son of his greatest warlord, he unsurprisingly found that his own army rebelled against him. Heiðrek led his rebel host with the sword Tyrfing and found victory, as always, declaring to the gods that the king and his few loyal men would be offered as sacrifice in place of his son. The seeress was satisfied that the death of such noble and royal men will placate the gods, and soon enough the famine ended. Heiðrek was now king, the most powerful and beloved beneath the sun's curtain, ruling justly and fairly. His faith in the sword's strength had brought him fame, victory, and a throne. But he lacked the foresight to realise that the bitter blade was destined to betray him soon.